Hello, my name is John King. I'm a transportation planner with Fairfax County's Department of Transportation. The agenda for this presentation includes a review of Metro Rail access, a brief overview of the Reston network analysis, and a discussion of the enhanced roadway network in the transit station areas. So this first section of the presentation is intended to speak to the adequacy of existing and planned pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure for accessing Silver Line stations. And there have been several studies looking at that issue. First of those was the Reston Metro Rail Access Group study, or RMAG. It was a citizen-led effort initiated in 2006. That citizen task force helped identify ways to improve access to metro rail stations in the Reston area. The Board of Supervisors endorsed a list of recommended projects coming out of that study effort in 2012. And those recommendations included intersection improvements, filling gaps in the pedestrian network, and enhancing bicycle facilities, as well as several major projects. This map shows the status of RMEG projects. These projects are being implemented in two phases. The first phase has 26 projects, 21 are complete and 2 are underway. The second phase has 21 projects, 6 are complete and 12 are underway. There is additional information. You can find this map and like I said, other additional information on the website. And there's a link at the bottom of the slide. On that information is updated regularly. This slide shows sort of a zoomed in view of that RMAG project status map. Green are your completed projects. There are several on the Wheelie Avenue corridor, which is what's being shown. Project number 4 is a pedestrian improvement. It added a crosswalk to the west leg of the intersection. That number 17 circle is another pedestrian improvement. Crosswalks were upgraded on the west, north, and east legs of the intersection. And number 20 is a pedestrian improvement that upgraded crosswalks on all legs of the intersection. And again, that information is available on the website. Another Metro Rail access study, the Herndon Metro Rail Stations Access Management Study, or HAMSAMS, was again a citizen-led effort. It helped identify ways to improve access to Metro Rail stations, specifically the Herndon and Innovation Center Metro Rail stations. That study was presented to the Board of Supervisors in 2015. This is another project status map. This one is for the HAMSAMS projects. There are 16 projects, 11 are underway, and 3 are complete. An example of a completed project, number 55, that's construction of an approximately 300-foot concrete sidewalk on the east side of Innovation Avenue from the Metro Rail Station to Dulles Green Boulevard. The county is also expanding its bicycle share network, the bike share network, Capital Bike Share Network in Reston. Red icons, that's the existing stations. Blue are the new stations that are planned. The county did receive funding for the expansion, and that'll be used to purchase new equipment and bicycles for 19 stations. And those new stations are opening this summer, which is pretty exciting. This map is one of a series of maps that was produced with the working group back in February. The idea was to help generate suggestions for missing links or needed improvements. This shows the existing bicycle and trails network as well as the planned facilities. Working group members were asked to identify possible need for additional improvements or things like that. We did hear back about need for bike or pedestrian access from the Wainwright Drive area to the commercial areas west of Reston Parkway. We did communicate that to our active transportation group, and it can be added to the unfunded project list. Another working group recommendation, and these are indicated with the red stars, was to add additional pedestrian crossing. There's a missing crosswalk at Fairfax County Parkway and Sunrise Valley Drive. And that project, the crosswalk is expected to be added as part of an upcoming project. We expect that to be implemented in 2 to 3 years. If there are any additional recommendations or comments from the task force, please send those along, and they'll be considered as part of the countywide active transportation plan process. So moving on, this portion of the presentation is a quick, a brief review of the Reston network analysis. It was the last major traffic study done for the Reston area. It evaluated the conceptual grid of streets and road elements in the transit station areas. It was recommended by the Reston Master Plan Phase 1 study. This analysis, the Reston network analysis, was initiated in 2016 and completed in 2018. A group of an advisory group of landowners, residents, community representatives, members of the business community, etc., was participated in this process. They helped with technical analysis and identifying strategies for long-term funding and transportation improvements in Reston. So the Reston network analysis did look to achieve basically a level of service E or better in the transit station areas. That was the mitigation target. To get there, they used a tiered approach to mitigating the roadway network. Tier 1 types of improvements would have essentially no right-of-way impact. Tier 2 would have a small or limited right-of-way impact, and then Tier 3 would be your larger type of improvement projects, typically much more costly and impactful. Just some assumptions about that study. We did assume basically each local street grid link was going to be one lane in each direction, and it would be assumed to have additional bicycle and pedestrian facilities as specified in the comprehensive plan. So this map is showing an example of a Tier 1 mitigation approach, basically adding traffic signals where they would be helpful or needed to improve conditions on the roadway. And the study found a potential need for 30 new traffic signals in the future condition. This slide shows a Tier 2 type of example that was considered as part of that Reston network analysis study effort. The intersection shown is Wheelie Avenue at Isaac Newton Square North. Assumed the existing condition had a sort of a shared through and turn lane, and the mitigation would be to add turn lanes, eastbound left turn lane and a westbound right turn lane. So potential minor right-of-way impact there with that type of mitigation. This slide shows an example of a Tier 3 mitigation that was considered, and we'll talk more about. We actually talked about this intersection at the last night's task force meeting. This is again a much costlier type of improvement project. It's a grade separated interchange that was considered and recommended as part of the Reston network analysis. So the Reston network analysis study did look at a lot of different ways to mitigate the future conditions and how to interpret, what the future roadway network would look like. One thing that was done was to identify problem locations. These are intersections that look like they could potentially be performing very poorly in the future. 120 plus seconds of delay at these intersections or more. And it really just was a way for staff to help better understand sort of where they might need to drill down with mitigation or where the trouble areas might be. So this next series of maps shows the future 2050 conditions and where you might have those problem locations. Again, those are 120 plus seconds delay or more, so not performing very well basically in the future potentially. This map shows the unmitigated conditions, and there were approximately 26 intersections identified that would be classified as problem locations as part of that study. As you start to apply those tiers of mitigations, again, the Tier 1 example was signals, but essentially not having any right-of-way impact, so it could be restriping existing lanes, things like that. As you start to apply those Tier 1 mitigations to the network. You can see a number of those problem locations do go away. Then as you continue to apply the tiered mitigation approach, this being the tier 2 mitigation application of the network, you can see even more of the problem locations do go away. And this map here shows application of the tier 3 mitigation to the network. Nearly all the problem locations do disappear. One outlier on the periphery of the TSA area, the intersection of Centerville Road at Sunrise Valley Drive, could potentially still be a problem in the future. That's what the network analysis found. But overall, the Reston network analysis study did find that impacts associated with development could be mitigated. Those roadway impacts could be mitigated. Just to summarize, so we've covered a number of studies, the RMAG, HAMSAMS, and Reston network analysis. Those recommendations coming from those studies do help to define a framework for transportation improvements on the Reston and the Reston areas. Framework they provide or helps guide development and future transportation infrastructure and investments. And we think as Reston develops, it will certainly become a place where people are able to make trips by multiple modes, feeling safe, walking, biking, taking transit. This slide, just a callback to one of the bigger picture topics we've talked about, this idea of a land use and transportation balance. Just wanted to note that the current plan does provide a number of policies and strategies intended to help balance that travel demand generated by the land uses with the availability of transportation services provided by your transportation network. So those types of policies or strategies include travel demand management program, which has been active and effective, provision of additional transportation capacity in the form of roadway widenings and other types of projects, monitoring of development and transportation conditions, and we have a Reston data dashboard that's live and will be continued to be updated with new data as that is collected. And then a flexible and innovation funding and implementation strategy, which Reston has as well. So really having these types of policies and strategies in place really helps sort of the dynamic environment that is Reston balance out those land use and transportation conditions. This final section of the presentation we wanted to do for you all is on the enhanced roadway network, specifically the Isaac Newton / Wheelie to Business Center Drive conceptual connection, the American Dream Way to Isaac Newton Square street connection, and one that hasn't been talked about, an American Dream Way to North Shore Drive connection. And just to call back, we did kind of go over this with the working group, but just wanted to note it again that in the current plan, all the maps that have that grid of streets or enhanced street network note that there should be quite a bit of flexibility as those are advanced, if and when they are advanced. Basically, the maps, the grid maps, give a guide for how that network should be developed, but there does need to be some flexibility there as well. So it's just a note. So we did note that there was some concern about this proposed connection, Isaac Newton / Wheelie to Business Center Drive. Staff just wanted to reiterate that this connection was intended to be only built with redevelopment in the area. No intention to impact the park or other sensitive areas. Certainly we could, like to discuss maybe clarifying language about that, if that's a possibility. And generally speaking, I think the intent is to try and have as many connections, roadway connections in these transit station areas as possible to allow traffic to disperse throughout the network. This is another grid link that's been talked about quite a bit, the Isaac Newton Square to American Dream Way connection. I know that there's certainly understandable concern about potential impacts to the golf course, and just wanted to reiterate that this roadway link was recommended in no way to spur redevelopment or negatively impact the golf course. It really was a strictly a road network function type of recommendation as part of the Reston network analysis. It did project that this link would carry a decent number of trips, approximately 500 or so in the AM and PM peak hours. So you think roughly 5,000 daily trips on this road. And if it's removed and there's no alternative parallel facility, which was the intent of this, put in place, a lot of those trips would likely end up back on Sunset Hills Road. So the intent of this road, again, is not to in any way negatively impact the golf course or encourage redevelopment of the golf course. It really strictly is just trying to find some way to relieve future traffic on Sunset Hills Road by providing a parallel facility. As I mentioned before, that's really one of the goals of the conceptual network is to provide as many different routes for drivers as possible throughout the network to break up traffic, disperse traffic, and get it off those main lines as they become overburdened. So this map is just to show sort of a pulled back view of what's already been built, what's approved, and what's conceptual on that grid of streets or enhanced roadway network in the Wheelie Station area. And again, just highlighting the two connections that we showed previously in the context of the larger roadway network. You can see with that Isaac Newton Square to American Dream Way connection really would, if that or some alternative does not get built or put on the plan, then essentially you'll have just more traffic on Sunset Hills Road in the future, and removal of the link in the business center area. Again, it would allow for additional circulation. That's really what we want to encourage as part of the conceptual grid of streets. The last connection we wanted to talk with you all about is one that I don't think has come up at the task force. It may have come up at the working group meetings, but I don't remember the context if it did. Yeah, we were talking with our site analysis section folks who have an active redevelopment application in the area, and we're looking at this sort of short roadway segment and the potential to benefit the site. Certainly looks like it could. There is an existing pedestrian facility there today, which we would want to retain. The link we were when we were looking at it, we certainly want to keep the footprint very small. One lane in each direction, something like that. It could have looks like it could have some additional benefit in terms of another east-west connection for local traffic, providing some relief to that main line as we were talking about before. And just wanted to bring this up and see if anyone had any thoughts about it. And this is the final slide of the presentation. We did take, I don't think we received a final version of the working group's revisions to the local street grid in the TSA areas, but we did note on the draft maps that we saw as part of the working group, there were a couple placeholders in areas where there had previously been a street grid sketched out, and we just wanted to note that basically with this type of description in the plan, it really would limit the county's ability to advocate for roadway improvements as development occurs in these areas. So having just this placeholder, we don't feel as county staff would be very valuable or effective in terms of our ability to advocate for getting needed roadway improvements. So that is it for the presentation. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for tuning into this, and hope to talk more soon. And please feel free to follow up with us as needed. I'll talk to you soon.